Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
You a communist? Huh? How'd you like it? They tell you all the time what to do, what to think, what to feel. Do you want to be like a cheap? Like all those other people, man? Bah, bah.
I don't have to listen to this bullshit.
You want to work 8, 10 fucking hours? You own nothing? You got nothing? Do you want a chivato on every corner, man, looking after you, watching everything you do, everything you say, man? Do you know I eat octopus 3 times a day? I got fucking octopus coming out of my fucking ears, man. I got the fucking Russian shoes my feet's coming through. How'd you like that? What do you want me to stay there and do nothing? Hey, I'm no fucking criminal, man. I'm no put of a thief. I'm Tony Montana, a political prisoner from Cuba. And I want my fucking human right. Now. Just like the president, Jimmy Carter says. Okay?
Carter should see this human right. He's really good. What do you say, Harry?
I don't believe a word of this shit. They all sound the same to me. That son of a bitch Castro is shitting all over us. Send this bastard to Freedom Town. Let them take a look at him.
Get
him out of here.
You know something? You can send me anywhere. Here, there, this, that. It don't matter. There's nothing you can do to me that Castro has not already done.
Get him out of here.
Is it like a really like Cuban? But no, I mean, you talk about this all the time that Cubans don't really do drugs.
No, we don't. We're very clean.
Is that true?
No, it's not that we don't do it.
The 80s Cubans do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but they didn't do the drugs.
So-
They made the drugs.
Yeah.
We also saw Scarface.
They transported them.
We
It's
also
the business.
Yeah, Cubans don't really are not big. Like
Addicts,
big now,
right?
more, but just like marijuana and stuff, nothing hardcore.
weed's alright, but getting into I should have actually said hello a little while ago. Anyway, welcome back to APodAmongstMen.
Oh, we're already on?
Yeah, no, we're on. Started
Nice.
recording. Don't worry about the chancleta.
The
It's
chancleta.
fine. You weren't throwing it at somebody. You're not participating in some kind of stereotype.
Oh my God.
So we're back. We're back in Miami. We're here for episode 15, 16, one of those. No, it doesn't matter. So one of the things that I've been learning a lot in my life now that I'm married to a beautiful Cuban woman is about Cuba itself. Now, this is something I wanted to talk to you guys both about because you guys both are from Cuba. You've come here from there. You've left. You know what it's like. A lot of times I feel like people here, especially myself, I don't know, maybe I slept through that section in high school in history class, but people just don't know. People don't know what it's like. Just 90 miles away from the United States, there's this other country here. It's this island that's basically stuck.
But I don't think they cover that in school.
Well, that's my
It's just
point.
non-existent.
I mean, it's so close, and yet it feels like nobody really knows what's going on over there.
Nobody talks about us.
No, nobody outside of Miami and maybe Union City. My
That's
Jersey
true.
people, you know what I'm talking about. Union City. Union City is like the second largest population of Cubans outside of Miami.
Really?
Outside of Miami and Cuba.
It's interesting. Everywhere I go, I do always manage to find
A Cuban.
Cuban.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they make themselves known wherever they go.
Yeah.
Like when we were in Spain, remember we went to Toledo? There's a Cuban restaurant. They wanted to make sure you know it's Cuban.
Yep.
That's true. Everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah. And I found that one in Paris, which you guys couldn't go, right? It was closed when you guys
It was
went.
close.
Yeah.
We found the one in Madrid too.
Yeah.
Cuando sale de Cuba.
Oh, magically delicious.
We went back 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tyler still talks about it.
Oh,
It was really good
yeah.
food.
So I actually didn't introduce who's here. I have my wife, Betty, returning guest. Say hello.
Hello.
And my good friend, Sergio. Sergio, say hello.
Hello.
So
That's say the same thing. Say,
I like
buddy.
this, Sergio.
this is where I pretend like I'm Cuban. I pretend like I'm multilingual and cool. Like a pretentious dick. So let's get into it. So Betty, how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was 14.
Okay.
That was a long time ago.
Well, so you spent 14 years in Cuba.
Yeah.
So, you think you could describe a little bit what it was like there?
I don't know. It was happy times. To me, I was a kid.
As a kid,
I was not struggling. It was very free, very organic. But now that I look back and I have my son, I can tell you that it was very difficult. I can imagine my parents being very concerned about what to bring to the table. There was no food, there was no toys. We didn't have Christmas. We didn't have any toys. For us, Christmas was just a dinner and a celebration to be all together. But there was no toys involved. There was no list. There was no Santa. There was no Reyes. It was just no toys whatsoever. But I had a great time.
What was it like? You said Reyes? Like kings?
Dia de Reyes.
What is
That's
that?
January 6th.
The Reyes Magos. It's the Spanish or the Latin.
Santa Claus.
The Latin Christmas. There's no such thing as Christmas. You wake up on the 25th and you get gifts. It's called the Reyes Magos.
Dia de Reyes.
The Magic Kings.
That's it.
What is it? Three
wise men?
Yeah.
Was that like when they finally showed up?
Yes.
That's supposed to be with the story
when
is?
they arrive to see baby Jesus and they bring gifts,
Yeah.
that's what we celebrate.
Okay.
So you're supposed to leave in grass
Yes.
under your pillow?
For, yeah,
Or
for
under
the
the bed?
carols.
Yeah, you guys got very different traditions than I'm used to.
But
here.
we never got anything either.
No toys whatsoever, nothing. It was just a celebration, celebrating family. And we were lucky enough to have always something to eat that night, something special to make a
On a holiday.
special. Oh, yeah, it was a holiday. And we will celebrate that. But it was just being happy just because we had our cousins and we have the entire family to play that night. It was music, we were dancing, and that was the gift. That
I
was
don't
it.
even remember much of like
How old
holiday celebrations.
How old were you when you came here?
11.
11?
Yeah. All I remember was just running around in the streets playing all day
Right.
and going out at night as a 10-year-old. Like,
Going out?
yes,
Like
literally.
going to clubs?
Yes.
Picking up women?
Like teenage, not even teenage because we weren't teens yet. But we had like matinee like clubs for
Yes, true.
kids.
That, oh my God, that is so true. I forgot about that
Yeah,
part.
I used to go with my friends. We used to get dressed up 6-7 p.m. Head out to the quote unquote club. And you go, you dance, and you're there till like 10, and that they start kind of transitioning to adults, I guess, from what I remember. But yeah,
It was fun. That is true. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
We had in Ciego de Ávila, he's from Havana, I'm from Ciego de Ávila, and we had a night. It was called La Noche Avileña, and it was on Saturdays. And we would go out. I would dress up and go out. So
it was
very
like the
fun.
version
It was
of
very
like
fun.
the lunch, like the parties I remember having here in middle school. The cafeteria,
Exactly. But on the
cafeteria,
streets.
yeah, the cafeteria parties that we used to have. You know, at
That's
2 in the
true.
afternoon on a Friday, we would do that in Cuba at 9 years old. You know, I'd just walk with my friends by ourselves,
It was
10,
just
15, 20 blocks
ourselves.
to like this downtown, quote unquote, downtown little area of town. And just,
No
party.
parents. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just us. It was
Yeah.
fun.
I even bought wine one time, trying to be cool.
You did at that
I
age.
don't know.
Oh my God.
That sounds like you're trying and succeeding.
Yeah, my mom tells that story all the time because she figured out that I took like $2 or $3 from the jar,
Oh my God.
and me and my friends bought wine just out of somebody's house. You know, you
You're so
just went up to
cool.
their window and you bought.
And they sold it to you?
Oh yeah,
They just didn't give a shit?
oh yeah, they don't care.
They don't care at all.
I don't care.
You can drink
Yeah,
very early. You can start drinking very early.
But, so now when you tell me about what it was like, that you said it was, nobody had money, like it was living in a communist government. It was hard
was
to come by
tough.
anything.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Well, for starters, I'm not even sure if it's still the same, but like cow meat was legal.
Cow meat
Yeah,
was illegal?
illegal.
It
Yeah.
was still, it is still.
It is,
legal.
right? So, I remember for like special occasions and stuff, if you had some cow meat, you know, you had to make sure your neighbors like didn't smell it, or you have to be worried that the neighbors weren't gonna snitch on you, or if you got caught like transporting
to
some
eat it on
meat,
closed doors.
you know,
Yeah.
you get pulled over by a cop or something, and you had
Cow meat, you were
a
in
pound
trouble.
of cow meat in the back of your bicycle, you know, you go to jail for like 5-10 years.
So what was the reasoning for that?
And not
I
only
still
that,
don't know what the reasoning is.
it
I'm
doesn't
sure,
make
I'm sure your
sense.
dad knows the whole
A
story
little,
behind it.
yeah.
Betty.
You can own a cow, but you cannot kill the cow to eat the meat. If you kill a cow, it's like 20 years in prison.
Really?
Yeah.
For killing your own animal.
Yeah. I think you got to give like certain percentage of the milk to the government, right?
Exactly.
Or something like that.
You have to share the milk with the government, and that yes, you get to keep a little bit of milk.
I guess they probably look at it like if you're already sharing the milk with the government, they look at that as destroying government property, basically.
I don't know if I don't know. The thing is that it's not their cow; it's your animal. You bought it. You're raising it.
Well, I'm saying if they're requiring you to share the milk with them,
They're requiring
far
you
as
to
they're
share
concerned.
everything with them.
Everything.
Yeah,
Everything in
everything
Cuba
is
is pretty much considered
what I
their
mean.
property.
You don't
Exactly.
own anything.
Yeah.
You don't own anything.
No.
yeah, they probably to them everything is theirs.
It is.
It is.
It is.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So you were 14 when your dad. How old were you when your dad decided he wanted you guys to come here?
Well, my
'Cause I know
dad
it's a long
wanted. My
process.
dad wanted
Probably
to
when you were born.
his entire life. He wanted to come his entire life. But he was just trying to find a way to come. He didn't want to come illegally because it's a lot of risk. So we had to find a way to come here with papers. So we were able to come because my grandfather was living here. He was a citizen and he claimed us. And we came as a family. It was a struggle. It was like 4 years. It was a lot of money. But we were finally able to leave the island. And that was the happiest day of his life.
And one of the saddest of yours, I bet.
Oh my God, I was so sad leaving my family, my house, everything, all my belongings. It was hard.
What about you? What was the process like for you to come here?
So for us, like I said, I was 11, and we came through. We came legally as well. Well, me and my mom did, because my mom and my dad were separated. So we came through the visa lottery system. Well, they call it a lottery system. It's actually called a diversity visa. The U.S. gives.
Randomly?
No, they allow so many countries a certain amount of visas a year. It's called a diversity visa. It's kind of to bring diversity to the U.S., you know.
Just a disclaimer for the listeners. Sergio is a G-man. He's a government
G-man.
employee.
Yes.
He's an agent.
Yay.
Special agent. I'm not going to get into the details, but...
And I'll have to kill you.
But I'm just saying. So
But
that
no,
was,
this is all public information anyways.
Well, you sound like you have a pretty good command over the facts here with that stuff. So I was
No,
wondering.
I mean, it's public information that nobody really cares to know about it, but
Exactly.
I have to know it. It's part of
Exactly.
my job.
But yeah,
So,
you do know it. So when you hear what he said, you could trust that he's telling the truth.
so anyways, the diversity visa, each country gets allotted a certain amount of visas for people who come over to the U.S. or immigrate for that year. And in Cuba, they just call it, I think in most places, they just refer to it as the lottery. Because it is a lottery, right? You submit a packet with your information. Hey, I want to be considered for this visa. And then they draw names out throughout the year. So it's actually funny because in Cuba, there's no such thing as like a regular mailman. You don't even have mailboxes. I don't
I know
remember.
we don't.
There's no
We
such
don't
thing as
have
like mailboxes.
No.
So there is a mailman. He comes around very rarely. I don't remember ever seeing the mailman in my house.
I know, me neither.
Except when they came around with a big yellow envelope. 'Cause
Everybody knew that yellow envelope.
We never, like I said, whatever correspondence you will get would just be. I don't even know what correspondence my parents would get, but it was always, it came in a yellow envelope from the U.S.
Like one of those big manila envelopes.
One of those big manila envelopes, exactly. And that came from the U.S. Embassy, typically, in Havana or the consulate, whatever not. And everybody saw
knew
the
that
mailman
envelope.
with that thing, and you saw that come, and it was
Everybody
will
will come out to see who was it.
Yeah. So
Like,
anyways,
who's the lucky winner?
yeah. So I remember, I got chills. I remember when we got that envelope, my mom called me over to the room, and she's like, "We got the visa," and I didn't really understand much, but I knew she's like, "We won the lotto,"
Oh my
but
God.
I knew what that meant, and yeah, again, it was weird, crazy excitement and scared because we were kids, had all my friends and family there, but even at that age, I knew that was the best thing, because like Betty said, even though we didn't really struggle as a kid, you saw the struggles.
But it's like probably like you'd look back now and realize what the struggle was, because as a kid you just that's just life. But then you look back, it's like, Jesus.
I remember my grandma. Again, Cuba, there's no such thing as like owning your business or even having a regular job. You either work for the government or
you're unemployed. That's it.
You're just unemployed and you
survive.
However, so most people kind of like
and you're selling wine,
quote unquote, their own business. That was their own business. So like my grandma sold pieces of elastic so people could sew their own underwears, and she sold yogurt and a bunch of other stuff.
She was a hustler.
Yeah. So anyways, my mom came with this news and I was just like so confused. And then she was like, but your cousin, Lex Betty, he also won the lottery. They also won the lottery. And for me, that was like...
just at random?
We got the envelope the same day. Like
shit.
his mom and my mom, we got the envelope
Oh my God, I didn't know.
the same day. And I freaking hauled ass on my bicycle to my cousin's house. And I remember like it was yesterday.
Oh my God.
And I actually ran into him halfway through because he was like on the same mission,
trying
to come to my house. And it was just so weird and crazy and scary. And we were so pumped and excited. But at the same time, it was scary. But man, it was freaking awesome.
How does it work? Like, so your mom submits her name, and she's like, it's just me, and I have one child, or
yeah, pretty much.
So it works like a whole family gets it, or
it's for a household. It works like it will go. Anybody that will live in that address, they will go.
Yeah, it depends. Like immediate family. Like if you have a cousin that lives with you, the cousin's not coming.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So a big thing, and I remember when that happened was my mom was debating she should remarry my dad, so that my dad could come with us. But then you run the risk because so once you get that envelope right, you get the congratulations, you've been accepted, whatever. You have to go through a process. You have to submit a bunch of paperwork to the U.S. Embassy or consulate, such as medical. You got to do medical tests, make sure you don't have any disease that you're gonna bring over when you immigrate.
Exactly.
All this kind of stuff. They do an interview with you. I remember going to that interview with my mom. And the U.S. consulate person asks you, just basic questions. What do you want to do? Make sure that you're not, whatever measurements that you use to make sure that you're going to contribute to society once you immigrate to the U.S. rather than you're going to be a bum, and live off of welfare. Where was I going with that?
Interview.
Yeah. And your parents like prep you and stuff.
Oh my God, my dad.
You sound like
what do they tell you ahead of time?
You just want to. You want to sound like the biggest angel when you're talking to the person at the consulate,
They're respectful. Don't speak if they're not talking to you. You just, I was so much.
Did your mom tell you to practice your drumming?
You imagine my mom. Oh, my mom,
so
so
I can
controlling.
only imagine your mom.
She'd drive me crazy.
She still does?
Just, oh my God, yes, I know. And we will get our best outfits to go to the interview, and we were so scared.
And you usually got to drive. Like for us, we had to drive to the capital. So it was like 2-hour ride, trying to hitch a ride or
5.
getting on a bus or something.
So Havana's not the capital?
Yes, but I lived in a small town outside Havana.
Okay.
So Havana is the state.
Gotcha.
But then there's the city of Havana.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
New York.
Exactly. So it's actually a joke amongst the Cubans or just the population in South Florida. If somebody asks you, if you're Cuban, where are you from? They say, from Havana. They're like, all right, which floor?
Yeah.
Because everybody claims that they're from the city. But there's actually very little people that are actually from the city. Yeah.
That's true. We had to drive 5 hours. We were in Ciudad de Ávila. Right in the middle of the island.
Who drove you guys?
No, I
Probably
think
hire
we
a
went
car?
Hire a car or a bus.
Gotcha.
I think we went for a car.
So how long would you say it took between when you got that big manila envelope?
So the process usually like 6 months to about a year. Depends on how fast you turn in all your paperwork. And if there's no mistakes or anything like that on the paperwork you send in, but anywhere from like 6 months to about a year.
That's faster. For us, it was 4 years because it's a different process.
From when you got the envelope?
No.
I didn't get the envelope.
For them, they came through the grandpa that claimed them.
Okay.
So you have to wait for the date for the interview, and they were giving those dates like with 4 years, 3 years, you had to wait in line until it was your turn for the interview.
How many people do you think were actually trying to do the same thing you guys did?
A lot of people.
Like,
I'm sure.
If you had to guess, like a percentage, like
The entire island is trying to leave the island.
Right. Yeah.
That's
And then the other thing with that is, again, going back to the immigration stuff, there's priorities for the families.
That's
So,
true.
if somebody... There's
F1,
there's
F2,
10, there's 10 people
F3.
trying to claim 10 different family members in Cuba. They'll give priority first to the dad that's trying to claim his
son.
his 5-year-old kid.
as opposed to a cousin trying to claim.
Or supposed to, in Betty's case, her grandpa was trying to claim her dad, but her dad's already a grown-up man,
Gotcha.
30-something older or however old he
was
was.
45.
So you're kind of in the back of the pile into the little kid and,
Of course.
all those other people that have the priority.
It's almost like being on an organ donor transplant list.
I guess I don't know.
Well,
I'm not too well educated with the details of.
No, neither am I.
process
I'm
for
talking
it,
out of my ass, but I've seen Scrubs, so it counts.
You sounded very confident.
I know, me too.
Hey,
I looked at him
That's
like,
why I'm the
whoa.
host. Hey, you doing over here? What do you think you're dealing with? But no, that's the same thing. They always have a priority list. So if somebody is like critical, or they need, they might jump to the front of the line. So the next liver that comes in is theirs.
But yeah, like in my case, that me and my cousin got the lottery, the envelope the same day. They actually came like 5 months after me because it was a family of 4.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, my cousin, 2 cousins, her and their parents. So it took longer for them to do all their paperwork and all that kind of stuff. So
what was it like the day when you finally came? What did you have to go through, Betty? Like, did you guys come on a plane? But
Yes, on a plane. It was 45 minutes. Very short plane ride. When I got here,
first airplane ride ever.
first one ever. Oh my God, I was so
Never
excited.
even seen an airplane before.
Never. I was so excited. That part was exciting. I was a little scared. When we got here, I remember in my head, Miami was like just the area of Coral Gables.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
so
Coral
in the
Gables
movies.
is very, very nice, very
Very,
beautiful,
residential.
elegant upscale section of Miami.
So I was expecting Miami to be like that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When I got here,
Shocker.
I was, oh my God, yes. When we were
Not
driving from
quite.
the airport to my uncle's house, I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is it? This is Miami? I was
Did you go live
expecting
in
so
Hialeah?
much more.
Did you go?
Sweet water. Oh my God, it was not what I was expecting. And then everything was so differently. I remember that night we had dinner and everything tasted different. I don't know why. It tasted different. I felt so weird. I don't know. It was overwhelming. And then Mirni, my cousin, was there and she took me to a party.
Maybe
Just-
from one of our previous episodes,
That's
her and her
true.
husband Chris were here.
That's true.
Sorry, keep
I just got home from the airport. She was waiting for me. We went to a party. Everybody was speaking English. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I was thinking in my head, God help me. Just take me back to Cuba. What am I doing here? I don't get this. I don't understand anything. I felt so out of place.
I can only imagine. Now, you brought up something earlier today. We were talking about this. You said that there was a point in time in Cuba where it was prohibited for professional people to leave the island, like anybody. What's that all about? You're going to have to elaborate on that because I'm a little fuzzy on it.
Like doctors, they had to wait 5 years before they get the approval to leave. If you were an engineer, it was maybe 2 years, things like that.
Did you guys know anybody that was like directly affected by that? Or?
Not me, because when we were leaving, it was not a thing yet.
No, when I left, it was a thing.
It
When I
was,
left,
but not
we're
for
about the same
engineers
age.
at least.
Well, I guess it depends, but yeah, my uncle, he was an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
He traveled all over the world competing. He played racquetball,
Really?
professional racquetball for Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't leave. They wouldn't let him leave. So yeah, when you it's not part of the suckery and crappery of friggin' being Cuba is that, right? Unlike here, you buy your ticket, you go wherever the hell you want.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you meet the visa requirements or passport requirements to go wherever country you want. Over there, you have to get permission from the Cuban government to let you out.
It's like they own you.
So part of this process, when you get your envelope and all that kind of stuff, is you got to submit this to the Cuban government. Like, hey, I got my paperwork to leave the country. They're accepting me in the U.S. And they got to say yay or nay. So
exactly.
They still do stuff like that today.
Yes.
I know your cousin can't come here.
Exactly.
Yeah. And not only if you were a professional, but if you were the snitch of the neighborhood, or not the snitch, but the opposition in the neighborhood, if you're the guy that was always standing up to, to the law, and be like, you were the loudmouth that was like, no, screw you, this ain't right.
Exactly.
They wouldn't freaking let you out.
They would do that as like a punishment to you.
Yep.
I would think that if you were the guy, like the rebel rouser kind of guy, they would want you out of there anyway.
Nope.
That makes sense, but no. Yeah.
That's a way of punishing you.
Exactly.
It's more about
because you want to leave.
You're staying here, you're gonna suck it up.
More about being punitive than actually.
Right.
Because you would think if you're the government, the last thing you want is people stirring up, the common folk.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah, but it's that communist mindset.
This is fuck you. This is our way.
Exactly. Yep.
And not even that. You didn't even have to do much. Like, my dad was not the one that would start problems or anything like that. But everybody in the neighborhood, everybody in his workplace, everybody knew that he was not with the government. So that would close a lot of doors for him and make his life a living hell.
In what way?
In what way? He would not get any, let's say in a workplace they will give cards to certain people. He would never have an option. He will have to stay in the bicycle. Raises, forget about that. Like,
Raises?
Like bonuses
Salary.
or
Salary
salary
raises.
Oh, raises, yeah.
They will not consider him. Doesn't matter how brilliant you are. If you're not with us, we're going to make you regret that any way we can.
This is the stuff that I think most people just never even think about. It never enters their mind. Like the average American up here, it's just there's no reason for them to think about it.
And I'm
They
sure you've
just
never
think-
talked about the apagones,
Oh my God, the blackouts.
the blackout.
Those just like imagine being with
Come
no
on, let it rip. Let me hear
power.
it.
Imagine being with no power for 48 hours.
They just kill the power because, unlike here, you don't pay a utility company. It's just the power, just like everything else, is run by the government. So I'm not sure. I don't even know what their excuses were. I'm not sure they even had one. But you get blackouts just about every other day.
We're in crisis. We need to save money.
Just about every other day. Sometimes it was 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes it was 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, 12 hours.
Sometimes it was 48 hours.
Without any notice. Just all of a sudden lights go off and boom.
That's it.
Imagine in the Caribbean, a blackout in the middle of summer.
People would sleep. I remember in my neighborhood, we would sleep on the floor outside our houses because it was so hot.
And it's not because the AC wasn't working, because we didn't have AC.
We
But we
didn't
couldn't
have
use the
it.
fans.
Exactly.
We couldn't use the fans.
And it was so hot. We would sleep on the floor outside.
Anybody have
And
AC
you will
down there?
see everybody. Some
There's a
people,
few
they
people
do have
that had the
the unit, the little units.
the AC units. The what do you call it?
The window units?
Yeah,
That.
exactly.
Yeah,
They
I
have a
guess
name,
it
I
was
forgot.
It's very
pretty rare.
expensive. It's expensive,
Yeah, there's
and
no
not
such thing
everybody
as
has them.
central AC.
No,
There's no such thing.
you will never see that in the
Now there's a few people maybe that have like newer construction houses, and they've been they got some money, but yeah.
You know, it's irritating to me when they say, no, it's just, if you're planning on going on Cuba, just be careful. People are very poor there. You cannot think about healthy food. You cannot, like, when they talk without, it's not that we're a poor country.
Well,
It's that we're a communist country. There is a big difference.
well, let's get into that because you had a little issue recently, a little run-in
just get
with a
upset.
blogger.
I get upset when they say things
See
without
it in her face.
Well,
like they don't know.
tell them what happened.
Why would you say that? Like, she was just blogging about a trip that she had to Cuba. She said it was tough, it was rough. I was not expecting that. You couldn't find anything healthy. You would think, like, we're in the Caribbean, that you will have more fruits, you will have more vegetables. Because she wanted to go not to the hotels, but really to locals, to locals. So she went to Trinidad, not even in Havana. You know what I mean? So she was trying to get the full experience.
shit there.
And she got her full experience. But then when she's talking about it, she doesn't realize that she went to a communist country. You cannot compare Cuba to Bahamas. You cannot, there's no point in comparison. We don't have the resources because they're taken away from us. You will think, yes, you can plant fruits and just use the fruits, or kill a cow and have food. I don't know, but we don't have access to that.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Bahamas is probably just as poor as Cuba, but they're not a communist country.
Yes, they at least have the opportunity to get something.
You can work, you can hustle, you can work on a fishing boat
You cook
or
food
whatnot,
for the fire festival.
and you, and you can make some money and go buy whatever you want with that money. But there's no such thing as that in Cuba.
Exactly.
What are some things you guys miss the most from there? Anything, whether it's food or an activity you guys used to do, maybe just having everybody so close all the time.
Man, as a kid, I don't know. I'd say probably, and you could probably say this for a lot of other countries, not necessarily communist countries, but like in Europe, the lifestyle is just a little different, more relaxed. Not as fast paced, and
absolutely.
You
get time to, I don't know, to catch up with friends, a coffee. I don't know, it's different.
It's just because in Cuba there's no bills to pay, right? Your house, it's pretty much like we talked about just a few minutes ago. Right, everything's pretty much owned by the government, so you don't have to worry about working overtime or working the weekends.
That's true.
To get extra money to pay your bills, because there are no bills. You pay like a few bucks for water, and I think that's about it. So there's no pressure really, no that constant pressure. Shit, I gotta make extra money. I gotta make my car payments. I gotta make my house payments. I want to buy this. I want to buy that.
I want to travel. I'm on vacation.
Right.
You don't have any.
You don't have any of that.
But if you listen to just that part of it, there's no bills, the house is paid for.
It sounds great.
If you just hear that, it's like, shit, that sounds pretty good. But then
until you have it.
Until you realize what else is involved.
And that's a communist mindset, right? And that's what they sell their product on.
Absolutely.
You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to pay for education. You don't have to pay for medical service. You don't have to pay for nothing.
Exactly. You don't have to pay for
rather
medical.
pay for
They're only giving you half the story.
The problem is that you don't have to pay for medicals, but then you go to the doctor and you don't have medicines.
Yeah,
so
they don't even have the stuff they need.
Why you want that?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to go to the doctor and be told that they have to bring their own bed sheets?
Or that they don't have anesthesia.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know, for us as kids, it's a little different. But I do miss that, and I talk about that with Charlene, and we've talked about it before. Like here, even in the nicer neighborhoods or where the neighbors are more, close with each other. Like I lived on the streets. Wake up in the morning, just go to the street.
Me too. It was fun.
All your friends just rallied up. You were playing hide and seek. You were playing soccer. You were playing this,
Very
running
active.
around, whatever. My grandma used to have to go chase me and yell in the middle of the street
to eat.
for everything, right? And you don't see that here. Of course, we're talking now, with technology and all that, it's a whole different story. But I remember even when I first got here, I had a small playground in front of my uncle's house where we came in, and there was maybe a kid or two out there, and they were only there for a few minutes, and that was it.
I think a lot of that, though, has to do with the times. Because when I was a kid, we had that. Like, whatever kids lived on the street, we all played together.
Yeah.
Every day. Every day we weren't at school, we were out
Really?
playing together.
I don't think you see this that much here. Maybe it's just here. I don't know. But if you see it, you know that they're Cubans. Like, you will see that a lot. I see it a lot in Hialeah. In a condo in Hialeah, you will see a bunch of kids running around and being outside all the time, doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just Cuban. It's a lot of the Hispanic culture as well.
Yes, you're right.
I think it's just everybody. I mean, keep in mind, too, nowadays, even though it's if you look at the stats, it's safer. It's like the average crimes and like child abductions and stuff like that are down 70%. Around there from what they were.
Those stats?
No, I was just reading a book.
We need to make sure.
Yeah, no, I was just reading this book, The Coddling of the American Mind, and they were talking about it. The actual statistics have gone down drastically since like the 50s and 60s.
Is it because kids are not playing outside anymore?
Well, no. The problem, one of the things is that because of the way technology is, if something happens in Oregon right now, we can see it on Facebook, and to us, that's as real as somebody that lives down the street.
Absolutely.
So you're actually seeing more things, but less things in total are happening. because everything is reported now.
Okay,
Not just
makes
you're
sense.
not just seeing what's in your immediate neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it actually creates like an irrational fear for parents, which is understandable because everybody, if you love your kid, you want to make sure they're all right, and you end up not letting your kids do the same things you did as a kid, and then you complain, oh, these kids today are too soft, but then again, you're not letting them go live their life, and you set up this generation to fail. So that's completely off the side.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think it's just in general the sense of community? I know you talk about this all the time, Betty. Is that it was like an open door policy with everyone?
Yeah.
Come right in the house.
Bring that up, the sense of community, right? If you relied on each other, on the neighbors, every day. You just looked over the fence or just walked out of your front door, and you were like, "Hey, Maria, I need some sugar."
That's true.
And
Keep talking. I'm just gonna get a drink.
Because you didn't have access to all those other things like we were talking about earlier. You couldn't just get food anywhere and whatnot. If one neighbor got sugar, but you couldn't get sugar, the other neighbor got spices or whatever the case might be.
Coffee. Oh my God, coffee. My neighbor will always share coffee.
Constantly, you knew every neighbor in your block for sure. And you shared at least once a day something. Mostly food items.
And you can rely on them. Like if you had your kid outside, your neighbor will be watching your kid as well.
Oh yeah.
They will protect each other.
Oh, your neighbor will spank your kid too if they did something stupid.
I almost wish that we still had that policy because that's not just a Cuban thing. That was an old school thing because I know people like, if my kid misbehaved and beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Like my dad used to say it to people. My biological father used to say that.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ, I thought you were on my side. He's like telling other people to kick my ass. I didn't think I was that bad of a kid. Like, geez, all I did was, I walked through the guy's grass, You don't have to cane me. But that is a big thing though, because there is the generosity that I've seen, like for people in a situation where you have so little, but you're still willing to share just that small amount. Yeah. Like you told me a bunch of stories like this, like you would share with your cousin.
Yeah, we will share everything we had.
Yeah.
If my mom would get a chicken, I remember one time, we got a chicken in our backyard. We didn't even know where it came from. She asked our neighbors, the two close ones to us, if it was theirs. It was not. So she killed the chicken. And she invited everybody to eat. Even the neighbors. Yeah, my cousin Marveris and the neighbors ate from the same chicken. I'm pretty sure it was very little, but everybody ate the chicken.
It's crazy that people here, like if you didn't grow up in that kind of environment and then you found yourself in it, like if you went from high to low, you know what I mean? They wouldn't share. Because you think, oh, I only have this little bit. Like I want it for myself and my own family.
I need it to last. No, we will share everything and anything we had. My mom had a plate of food. She will share it with everybody.
She still does that. You still do that.
Of course. We grew up like that, but it's not only me. You can ask my neighbors. They will do the same thing. Or my cousins, they did the same thing. We all grew up like that. We will share everything we have. We will help each other out.
That seems kind of like a cultural difference too.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
And we still are the same way. Like, we will share everything we have.
I just think like the average American, like, I mean, you get to a point, like, especially up where I'm from like the Northeast, it's kind of like, it's not just Irish, it's not just Italian, it's like, when you talk about, like, white people, it's just a mix of all these different cultures together. Mm-hmm. And everything blended together, you kind of lose the authenticity of each individual thing. Because, me personally, I'm Italian, Irish, Polish. But I'm not enough of any one of those things to really fully embrace the culture the way you guys are Cuban. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're Cuban. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just like a mutt.
But yeah, I think
for lack of a better word,
that's definitely a cultural thing. Like we were just talking about sharing. And for example, I was in Puerto Rico last year, the year before, for the hurricane. I was there during the hurricane. And
Maria, right?
Yeah, Maria. And I've been through a few hurricanes here at home, and I've found like people help each other out, but a little bit, not too much. Depends on if you know your neighbor or not.
Yeah,
you know,
general pleasantries.
Right, but like over there, it's just that culture, and it's kind of Puerto Rico reminds me a lot of Cuba.
Me
So
too.
close.
And the cultures the cultures are very
Very
similar.
similar. The food is very
So like same thing, everybody knows each other. You know, the neighbors all talk to each other and they borrow stuff and all that.
and
so-
they help each other.
Yeah, and when I was there, it reminded me of all that. There was extension cords. If somebody in the block had a generator, there was extension cords everywhere. In Charlene, my wife's grandma's house, the lady behind her had a generator. She would plug her freezer in for 4 hours, unplug it, and then give the cord to her
You
grandma
see.
for another 4 hours.
That is amazing.
And they just went back and forth.
I remember in the blackouts in Cuba, we had an extension cord with another neighbor. It was like 3 houses down, but we were different circuits.
Yeah.
So we will have light, we will have power when they were out, and we will give them with the extension cord. And they would do the same thing, but they had power and we didn't.
Yeah.
So we would help each other like that. It was through the backyard, and that was illegal. You couldn't do that. If you get caught doing that, you get in trouble.
Well, that's
So we will have to do that and close every window and doors for people not to know that we had power when we're not supposed to.
But that's exactly what I'm talking about before. It's like that struggle breeds. Excuse me. What's the word I'm looking for? Like not intimacy, but it breeds. It brings out the closeness. Like you care about each other. It's that community. You care about your.
But listen to this. If I am willing to share my power with my neighbor, why it has to be illegal? Who am I affecting? I'm one to share with them. It's like in Puerto Rico they will say that that's illegal. Like you cannot help your neighbor.
Even
It's
in Puerto
illegal.
Rico, they would say that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like it's
I'm
crazy.
sorry.
If they come now to Puerto Rico to tell them that they cannot do that, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Well, it's just hard to imagine what the thinking is behind the way that those rules are set up by the government. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people that you'll meet that'll try to say, it's really not that bad because they have all this, they have free health care, they have free education.
Everybody that
but
tells you that,
has never been there.
Nope.
yes,
Exactly.
that's
They've never lived it.
that's the only thing I have to say about that.
Right. Or it's the people that go for a week vacation and they stay at a
exactly.
hotel and all they see is the hotel.
Exactly.
And all the tourist sites and the stuff that...
You see what the government wanted you to see.
Exactly.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's true.
Like,
It is true.
especially after 2 years ago, whatever it was, that they kind of relaxed the regulations a little bit and it opened up for more tourists. There's no such thing as going on Travelocity and booking your own tour and looking for reviews and see which one's the best tour operator based on reviews. There's only one. You go to the hotel and it's like, hey, I want to go see this. Okay. And the people that are doing it are put in that place by the government. They show you what they want, how they want, and all that kind of stuff.
It sounds crazy, but in Ciego de Ávila, at one time, there was someone, I don't remember who, it was someone very important that it was going to come from Havana all the way until Santiago de Cuba. So it's a special route that they had to take. In Ciego, they painted all the houses that it was in that route. That was it. Not one house more. It was just what they needed them to see. And they painted all of that. It sounds crazy, but it was the truth. We were there. I saw that happening. They didn't paint my house because they couldn't see it from where the thing was passing.
From the route, yeah.
So that was it.
And same thing with, like people that were here and migrated to the U.S. that would go visit their family in Cuba. And they'd stay at a resort for the weekend, let's say. If you didn't have a passport, a U.S. passport or a foreign passport, you couldn't come into the hotel.
You cannot stay
So
with
if
your
you wanted
family.
if you wanted to bring your family to the beach for the weekend and stay with them in the hotel, they couldn't stay.
Because they're Cubans, and Cubans are not allowed
Right.
to enjoy that.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That
it's
sounds
nuts.
crazy.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
And there are areas that you are not allowed, period. That's it. You're not allowed because you're Cuban. That's it.
So, what are some things? I mean, hang on. let me start over. My mouth isn't working at the moment.
What are you drinking?
Jupiña.
Oh.
In honor of the podcast. I'm sharing my jupiña because I have so little.
Thank you very much.
You should put a picture of the jupiña for this podcast.
That's
I
actually
know,
that's actually not a bad idea.
You should put it in your Instagram so people know what this is.
That's true. I had Iromber on the the Instagram.
There you go.
Which, by the way, if you're not Cuban, that
iron
actually
beer.
is iron beer.
Eat 'em
There's
bear.
so many things that we've talked about. Is that it's the pronunciations?
Oh yeah.
Like my favorite is Colgate.
Oh yeah.
If you want to brush your teeth,
Yep.
you use Colgate.
Yep.
And Colgate toothpaste.
Yep.
What are some other ones?
Palmolive.
Palmolive to
there's-
wash your dishes.
I was just talking about that. Yeah, there's everything. The frigidaire.
Oh my
Fridge.
god.
Frigidaire.
Yeah, it's just the brand.
That is
It's
so
called
true.
frigidaire. The locking mechanisms on the doors.
That-
the
that-
yale. The yale.
Yale.
It's the brand. Yale.
Yale.
Yeah, jale.
El yale. Hay que cambiar el yale.
This is something that also messed me up. I think this is the same for Puerto Rican and Cubans, is that the Y and the J sounds are swapped.
I know. That's
So-
why you say.
We know you're there, Charlene. You could just
Yes,
speak.
you. What's your problem? What's your problem?
Well, we already acknowledge that you're here, so there's no point in whispering
trying
now.
not to be
Can you
crazy.
bring me a
We
hooping
heard that.
since we're on
The one Puerto
hooping
Rican in the
Oh.
room is trying to be quiet for the first time in history. Have a seat. Let me turn your mic off.
After you bring me the hooping, honey.
Yeah, come
Oh
on.
my lord.
And don't let your sandwich burn.
So let me just, if you don't know what this is, Jupiña is a pineapple soda. It's a very, very Cuban thing, and it's delicious.
It is very
It's
delicious.
got more sugar than like 6 Cokes.
Nice.
You know, bad?
we already talked about that one. Yeah.
Any other word?
What are some good ones that you can think
Palmolive,
of?
Oh, honey, like
Colgate.
the Spanish words that we just kind of read the name and every item that. What else? There's always a bunch. Whoa.
In Cuban?
Speaking of the mic.
Puerto Rican too.
Oh, it's just like the Cuban names.
And what'd you say?
Hamburger. We
Oh
don't
no,
say
Ay,
hamburguesa.
verdad.
or the cereal. What is that we call the cereal? In Puerto Rico, they do it too.
Cheerio.
The Cheerio.
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 Pumpkin. It's really
Pampers.
just the brand.
I know. That's
But I think-
true.
Yeah.
Um,
What else?
Either way.
Yeah. Oh, it's just like
It's a bunch.
It's just like
Yeah,
the
there's a
Cuban
lot.
names.
It's a bunch.
It's just like the Cuban names, right? You got U.S. Navy. Somebody saw a U.S. Navy ship
Just Navy.
on the harbor. It's like, you can just get U.S. Navy.
well,
What's Navy?
That's a real thing.
you know,
Not
the
well.
name, you know it's Cuban.
Not well. My mom had a student, and his name was not well.
Really?
Wait.
Yeah, Noel.
Not well.
I swear to you, written like that. Not well. Noel. Noel.
There's a lot of Russian names too, right?
Yes.
Big surprise
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Judy. Like Judy.
Judy. Judy's a common one.
Aniuska, Katiuska.
New York.
Nurka. No? Nurka.
Olga. Olga's kind of
Olga?
Russian too.
Greek.
Olga's very Russian.
Yeah.
And Greek too. Olga. Tatiana.
Let me ask you this. We talked about things you miss the most. What are some things you miss the least?
The heat and the blackouts. What a bad combination.
The blackouts.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was a pain.
The heat and the blackouts together.
Yes.
I don't think you miss the heat itself.
Nah, the heat not so much.
I'm saying
'Cause-
together. Together.
Oh yeah.
That's a bad combination.
Yeah, because there's a difference. Like here, Miami's just as hot probably as Cuba or most of the Caribbean islands. But there's a difference. You can jump in your car or get to your house, and it's cool. Over there, there's no
There's
such
no
thing.
escape.
Yeah. I think another thing, and we touched on it a little bit earlier.
Well, I never lived in Puerto Rico, so I can't really.
Is that for me?
No, I need you to cut it.
That was funny.
You've been
I
to
thought
Puerto
it was
Rico,
for
though,
you.
right? What is that? A sandwich?
Yeah.
It smells good.
It does smell good. You're making everybody hungry
You
here.
guys want one?
No,
Nah, no.
I'm just kidding.
We're eating on the road.
Yeah, you guys get along.
We got a long drive. Yeah.
You need to rest. and
You do
sleep
need
a
some
little.
rest.
We'll take turns. We got a
We
20.
need to rest like a 2 hours rest.
Yeah.
Both of us like a good sleep.
I'll take the first shift so you can rest.
Okay, can we?
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll get back into this.
Exactly. We're discussing this.
They
now.
we're all having a good time here, but
Yeah,
you guys
we
gotta
forgot
go.
we're on a podcast. You want to put your headphones on, sis?
You can. She can hear us. Let her be. She had a headache.
Okay.
Headache. What is it? I cannot be switching Spanish, English. It gets my accent gets worse.
So, what are we talking about? Things that we like, we miss from our culture.
Well, we were talking specifically about Cuba.
Talking about Cuba.
Coming here and
You're
what a big
you're
change
almost
it
Cuban,
is.
honey. You talk more Cuban
you're,
than Puerto
you're
Rican.
practically Cuban at this point.
Well, she's got Cuban in her.
Oh,
like literally.
absolutely. Yes, we know.
Injected in.
High five to me.
Injected in. Oh my god.
No, I
Wow,
lost.
this is graphic.
I've
I
lost.
know, right? Injected to me.
I've lost my words. Like my speaking. I've had to mold things I say. Otherwise, people don't get it.
And how you fold
Especially
things.
here.
How you fold things. Like, habas. You have learned.
And when we first started, I would tell Sergio something. He's like, "What?" So I had to.
Yeah, and now I say Puerto Rican things to her. She's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Are you serious?
What
That's
a
Puerto Rican."
liar.
But
Like
I don't remember now, but there's a few things that I
No.
told you.
you're like.
Okay. Anyways,
I tell you Cuban things, and you're like, "What?"
Like a
What are
melitón.
Cuban things?
So,
El melitón.
me and Sergio were talking about this earlier. When you first came here, when you were learning English, you were telling me, what are some things that helped you learn? Like, what are some of the first things you experienced? Because you mentioned the movie Blue Streak before.
oh yeah, Blue Streak, honey, favorite movie ever.
You want
Nacho pizza.
you want to explain what we were talking about?
Yeah, so that was actually the first movie I saw where I understood. I actually went to the movie theater and I understood the full movie without having
What
to read
amazing
captions or
thing.
anything like that. And it was a good movie, and up to this day, it's still my favorite movie. I'm not a big movie person.
That's okay.
And I think you know that because every time you say a movie quote, I never know it.
Yeah, no, I'm always like, yeah, do you know a movie that's from? It's,
Nah, yeah.
I got nothing.
Yeah, me and my friends, I have a few friends that they're, the jokes just don't fly with me because I'm like, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, that was it was a bit of a struggle, like Betty touched on earlier. Especially going to school and Miami's not so bad because you still have a lot of kids that their parents are, Hispanic, so they speak Spanish and they can help you out, and you have the ESOL classes. English for Spanish speakers, or what's it called?
Yes.
English is second language.
Second language, yeah. Duh. But yeah, it's tough. It's a big shock.
What you said that helped you was hanging out with people that spoke English.
No, yeah. What helped me out was my first year, they put me in all Spanish classes. So I was taking the ESOL to learn English, but my math, my science, and whatever else, they were taught in Spanish by Spanish-speaking teachers. My second year, I skipped a level of ESOL, so there's typically like 4 levels. I went from 1 to 3, and the advisor put me all my classes in English. And for like most of them, the teachers did not speak Spanish because there was like 1 or 2 that the class was taught in English, but the professor, the teacher, spoke Spanish. So any questions or anything like that, I could always talk to the teacher. But I did have like 2 or 3 that they were just
3 in the deep end.
Yeah. So it sucked, but yeah, I think that's what helped me the most. And what helped me the most was I remember it took me forever to write notes. If I was copying anything from a book, just one sentence will take me like 5 minutes.
I remember that.
Because you couldn't just read it and write it. You got to go like word by word, or you kind of reading it in Spanish.
That's what I would do. I would read it in Spanish and try to write it. It was a mission.
What were some things that helped you, Betty?
Well, when I got to school, I didn't have that transition that you had. I went completely straight to English classes, and I was so lost. I had ESOL, and that was the only class that the professor spoke Spanish.
Right.
The other classes was just English. I remember Mr. Tagley. He didn't speak Spanish at all.
He spoke some broken Spanish.
Oh my God, it was a mission. I couldn't. It was a nightmare. And you know what helped me?
What's that?
Disney Channel.
That's so Raven. You sound like the Well-Read podcast now. That's what they always say. That is so Raven of you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that helped me. I will
A lot of
watch
people
that.
learn with like TV series. My mom learned English with help me out here, Steve. I know you know this English soap opera that's still going on. It's
Days of
been
Our
done.
Lives, General Hospital.
General Hospital.
There it is. Everybody knows General
Really?
Hospital.
My mom learned Spanish with General.
And
So
Spanish,
she didn't- I
English.
mean English. She didn't miss not one episode.
Yeah, that show is so old that my mom learned English with General Hospital.
Really?
And she's from here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You get that I made a joke.
I know.
Jeez.
I was like,
Tough crowd
no,
here.
No. I was looking at you like, oh my God, your mom really? I was really.
I was like, wait, that's the Italian one.
I was so confused, like,
Maybe she only spoke Italian.
her English is so good.
When we got here, my uncle did not let us watch. He was very freaking. He was a hammer. Like
Really?
he was very like strict, and he didn't let us watch. Just like my mom wanted to watch the novelas, the soap operas in Spanish.
No.
But he wouldn't let her. He made us watch like classic, like
Discovery
old
Channel.
Western classic movies and stuff like that.
So my dad. My
Your
dad
dad does
loves
have a
that.
choice.
He's like, no, you had, yeah, we didn't have a choice. And I hated those movies because he was like, hey, you have to watch this because they speak the proper English in this, you know.
Oh, he wanted to.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, it was
nice.
annoying.
You know what I did too? I would go to bed because they told me, I don't remember who said that, but they told me that if you go to sleep listening to English, you will learn it faster. So I will go to bed listening to music in English to catch it. I don't know if it helped or not. I don't know.
You're subconscious.
But I will do it every night.
Yeah.
Just in case. Do you think that's true?
I believe you.
No, that will help learn that language.
Well, there's an old joke. Who was it? I think Stephen Wright said it. He's like,
Yeah, we all better laugh for this one.
It's not my joke. Listen, it's not my joke, so you don't have to laugh if you don't like it. But he was saying, it's like, he said, I bought a record that you're supposed to play at night while you sleep, and it's supposed to help you learn Spanish in your sleep. So, but the problem is the record skipped in the middle of the night, so now all I can do is stutter in Spanish.
Oh my God. That's good.
It's not mine. Thank you. I have a problem where I quote so many movies and like comedians that it just comes out naturally on the show, like when I'm doing this. So I have to always have like a disclaimer. It's like, all right, that one's not mine. I don't want people to get all like bent out of shape.
Yeah,
Fuck
copyright.
guys stealing people's jokes. You know. So now that you guys are here,
We made it.
yeah.
We
What
are
are
here.
your feelings about Cuba now versus when you left?
Fuck
Like,
like,
yeah. Well, not obviously like not the
not the people, of course.
yeah, not the people. I mean the government, but like, what do you think? Is there any hope? Like, what
Yeah.
is it ever gonna get better?
I don't know.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, but like every time I talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, so, you know,
It's getting better.
Have you gone back to Cuba, or when are you going back?" I'm like, I have no interest.
Really? At all? None?
No, I mean, I love to go. You know,
More of a personal level, right? Like,
yeah, of course. You know, I love to go and
see where you used to grow
and
up.
see the island. You know, actually get to see places that I never got to see over there.
Me neither.
You know, it'd be cool to check out my neighborhood. I did go back. Last time I was like 14. You know, still a kid. I went back to visit my dad. He was still there.
I remember, and we
Twice.
did a party for you when you came back. We were hiding in your apartment with your mom. You remember?
Yeah.
You got in, and we were, surprise!
How long were
Right,
you
I
there?
forgot
Is there a
about that. Not like 3 weeks.
No.
Not this time.
No, babe, that was
We were
that was
14.
an 18-year-old.
God,
Belkis.
Babe, that was at 18.
no.
The stripper was at 18.
we were 14.
You were there for that one, right?
You really think you look concerned? Like
I
his
know,
mom
but
would've
we were
gotten a stripper.
14.
Oh, she
No.
would. At 14.
Not at 14, man.
It was not 14.
She would.
There was no
She's
slipper.
crazy.
It was just us hiding under the table.
I'm gonna ask the listeners this if they can actually hear the eye roll that Charlene just did right there.
They were like
That
this.
was very wrong.
That was
Is
the
that age, 14, 15, 16, or his party boys? Remember?
No.
Time?
I started like at 16, 17.
The cruise and all that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, stay on track here.
Please.
That's a whole different podcast, guys.
Yeah. But yeah, like I love to go, especially like Charlene. She's never been. You know, she wants to know. With me being Cuban and you know her best friends, pretty much. Just
We wanted to go this year, but from what it sounds like, I'm not gonna be able to go now because I'm American.
yeah, now they changed it. They
changed
changed
it
it
again?
back
They
up.
changed
May
it back.
first.
Yeah.
They changed it again. they changed it again.
Effective May 1st.
But yeah, I like.
Fuck that plan right up.
Yeah, and it's more of a, like Charlene said, a personal thing. It's like that I see it kind of the same way that, like Charlene brought up, going to where's that you wanted to go, honey? Dubai.
Yeah, I want to go to Dubai, but
And I have no interest in going to Dubai.
Look at you saw my face.
I have no interest in going anywhere where. Yeah, but
that's a
different situation. But my point is, comparing Cuba and like Dubai, is I have no interest going anywhere where I cannot control. I don't have freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I'd be walking down the road and I'm holding her hand, and the police stops me to question me if that's my wife. Because if she's not, then I'm not allowed to hold her hand.
Exactly.
You know? So it's kind of the same thing at Cuba, not in that same exact example, but you know, the fact that you go there and again they control you.
Yeah.
Not only that,
You gotta be careful what you say,
and
whatever it is.
they require that you go in as with your Cuban passport. You
Right.
cannot use the American
for
passport.
starters, yeah, it has to spend like $800 just to get that passport and permits and stuff to go, which is only good to go in there.
And if you go there as a Cuban, that's it. They can do whatever they want to you, and the United States of America cannot claim you.
See, that was something
You
that
went in
worried
like a
me.
Cuban.
That was actually
if you went in, like, couldn't they just
They
say
actually-
like, yeah,
they actually
fuck
had
you, you're
that-
stuck here now.
They had a warning on the at the U.S. Embassy's website for a while when Obama first changed the regulations and stuff, and people started going to Cuba. There was a disclaimer on there and a warning, like, hey, just beware. They did have a situation with like one or two people that they got held back by the government, and they said, no, you're not leaving. Eventually, I think they ended up letting them go a few weeks or
You know
months
anything
later.
about why they would have done that?
Who knows?
Some bullshit.
Who knows? It could be because maybe that person, they didn't like them when they went back there. You know, they were
They did something that they
something
had to.
that was not in accordance with the government's way or something along those
Exactly.
lines. So
Like if you're talking here, let's say I'm here talking all these things about the government. For some reason, they listen to this podcast. They don't like what I'm saying, and I go to Cuba, and they want to just scare me or just, I don't know, whatever they want to do, they can do it. I went in as a Cuban, so they can do whatever they want to me. And it could be just as simple as me saying the things I just said in this podcast.
Thank God your dad's not on here.
Oh my God.
yeah.
But
That's
I
really
could say they
scary.
can leave him there, like really.
Yeah.
Like I as an American to go there and know this, I think a lot of other Americans go into Cuba thinking, oh, how beautiful, and you know, the culture and the buildings and the architecture, and you've seen people that go to Cuba and everything is like
And the pictures they
best-
take,
yeah, and the
that's
pictures
so
that they
artistic.
take.
The building is
they
falling
don't
apart, but it's so
know
artistic.
What you and I know from being with someone that was born and raised there.
It's
so
a
I think
yeah.
we go in with a different perspective.
It's a totally different
Absolutely.
perspective, knowing as many Cubans from Cuba for real as we do. Not just somebody who came here when they were like 6 months old, and that's as much
Exactly.
Cuban that they eat rice and beans every day. That's
Exactly.
you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Like you're talking about people who actually were there and left. Which,
I
mean,
remember when I first met you and we were talking about, you know, Cuba and everything, and like I cried with you because you came here and you had never had an apple.
I know.
Or what was the other thing? A Malta?
Malta, condensed milk.
Condensed milk, and that you cried from being able, like that. And to me, that was so mind blowing because we have access to so much,
Yeah.
and it's so little as that.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned the apple because it was the first thing I wanted to try when I got here was an apple.
Right?
'Cause
Like
you
see
know,
it in
yeah.
movies.
You
You
see
see
it
it
in like an
everywhere.
apple, oh my
crazy
god!
is
And that was
that?
like the first thing that I wanted. And
Like
it was
everybody-
like everywhere.
Did you like it?
It blew my mind when
Not
you were telling
really.
me the story
Me
about
either.
the ice cream. Wasn't it with like ice cream when you first came here? Your uncle bought everybody ice cream.
Oh yes, my
Or your
dad.
grandfather.
Oh, Betty, we have mango ice cream by the way.
Ooh, I like that. No, my uncle asked my dad over the phone, like, when you get here, what's the first thing you want to have? We're buying food and we want to make a dinner for you. And my dad said, I only want chocolate ice cream. Because it was so hard to get ice cream in Cuba that was what he was really wishing, ice cream.
See, that's the crazy thing is that a lot of people who
a
just don't know anything about what it's like to immigrate here. They think that people are just coming here because they want to work and send money back home. Like with Cuba, it's a very, very different situation.
Exactly.
I definitely have gotten this from you, Betty, but I think there's a lot of Cubans that have kind of a chip on their shoulder about it. Because I know you've talked to me about Cuba. A lot of people feel like Cuba's just been forgotten by the world. You know what I mean?
It makes me sad because it really, when I see all of this about Venezuela and how people get together talking about Venezuela, trying to raise awareness, trying to get people together to support Venezuela, it makes me happy for Venezuela, and I support them all the way. But it makes me think like, oh my God, and we are completely forgotten. All of this going on
Cuba's
with Venezuela.
Worse than Venezuela.
Of course.
For the longest.
For a lot longer.
Like, there's money in
They
Venezuela.
almost make it like, oh, it's normal in Cuba.
It is okay.
Well,
Yeah,
Venezuela shit the bed because they put all their money in oil and
Right.
global oil prices tanked. Big surprise, your economy falls apart. Yeah. But yeah, Cuba's been like this since what was it, the 60s?
You see in the
50s?
Oscars, you see in the Grammys, in the Oscars, everybody, you will see at least one person mentioning Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. I've been hearing about it in the news constantly.
The concert they did and
all
all
these
that.
artists that showed up. I mean,
And that's the difference. They did all of this in the border, right? So they were free to have whatever they wanted to have in the concert. When they did a concert that it was called Concierto por la Paz in Cuba, the government decided who was going to the concert, and the government told everybody in the concert the certain things that they couldn't say. Like, don't talk about Viva Cuba Libre, don't say this, don't say that. So they had a bunch of rules that they need to follow. If you need to go and follow these rules, why are you doing it? Yeah. Don't do it. Why are you putting up with this?
That defeats the purpose of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder what it was like when the Rolling Stones did that show from the documentary we just watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's not something they're going to show in the documentary on Netflix.
Of course
all
not.
the different, I'm sure the sheets of paper the government gave them. This is what you got to do.
Of course.
Which, by the way, watch this. It's called Ole Ole Ole. It's the Rolling Stones doing.
You get a better
America.
idea of what we're talking about. They interview a bunch of Cubans attending to this concert, and they were saying, I was in jail for listening to their music.
Right.
Just for listening to their music.
Yeah.
They were in jail for that. And having them here, there were people crying. It was very emotional. And my dad saw the concert and he said, that was true. I remember my friend, he had the record, and we will go to his house, close the windows and the doors, and listening to the CD like it was, they were doing drugs. It was crazy, and it still is. But we just forgot.
Do you remember the show that Conan?
Conan, yeah.
We watched it together. Did you watch it?
I saw a piece of it. I think I did.
And again, he made it. They made it so that they showed what the government wanted to show.
That's my problem. Shows like that. I just start watching it. I see what it is, and I stop.
Professor teaching.
Yeah. I saw a show like that on Netflix. They were talking about,
and that's
irritating.
What people don't know, right? So people are seeing this and they're like, "Oh yeah, Conan just went there. He walked around with his camera, and that's it." No,
do that.
That's not real.
Yeah, there was someone from the government there walking him step by step and reviewing everything and making sure that reviewing everything before it was released.
That sounds like North Korea.
That's
essentially what North Korea does.
It's not far from it.
Yeah, I watched the documentary. It's called The Photographer and something, but it was about this guy. He was a photographer and he loved Cuba. So it started off. He was going there when Fidel first came into power, and he was photographing everything. But he would go back every decade, and he would see.
I
saw previews of that.
And I think he definitely took a little too soft a tone with Fidel. Like, he kind of looked up to him like, he was this guy, he was trying to do a good thing, and, pressure from the world caused this. But he definitely you watched the decline, and he met with different people over the years. He would go back to these three brothers, they owned a farm, and he would see them. It started off, they had these animals, these guys were like, they looked like they were 80 when he first met them in like the 70s, and then he keeps going back up until like 2010. And
so they were actually 80?
Yeah, but no, I think they were like that old, and they worked every day, and they just old guys who just kept going. But you see, like, he would go back like 10 years later, and it's like the farm looked a little older, and like, oh, we used to have, a bunch of cows, but, robbers came in and they killed all but one of them. So they had one cow left, and they kept him in this big cage so nobody could get to him. And then it would go back another 10 years later. It's like, oh, they killed our last cow. We don't have any chickens left. It's really amazing how there's people that can see that and not think to themselves like,
there's something wrong here.
Yeah, there's something majorly wrong with this picture.
You know what?
I don't know how you can make excuses for something like that.
Exactly.
Is my problem. Even if, like, it doesn't matter whether you're like a liberal or conservative type of person, but like, if you're looking at what's right in front of you, like, how do you?
It doesn't click.
How do you
nothing.
gloss past that?
And it is a little irritating. And you know what else? When I see people posing and just completely destroy buildings. Oh, this is so beautiful. It's rustic. I don't know what they call it.
Vintage.
Yeah. There is people living in there.
Yeah, that's not.
There's people with no roof in their houses.
Somebody didn't do that on purpose. It's just old and run down.
They do live like
that's somebody's house.
They don't have. Oh my God! It's so
and there's a lot of places like that, right? When we talk about poverty and a lot of places in Latin, Central America, and all that kind of stuff, but it's different. Poverty's not different, right? You're poor.
Yeah, poverty's poverty, no matter where you are.
You're poor in a communist country or in any other type of government or whatnot. But if you live in a poor country, but you find a business that gives you a job in the corner, you could go get a job in that business. They might pay you a freaking $1 an hour, but they're paying you and you're getting. But when you live in a communist country like Cuba or Venezuela or North Korea, you don't have that choice. You don't have the choice of going to somebody's business and telling them, hey, I want to work for you. Give me a job doing whatever. I'll scrub the toilets for $1. Exactly. You don't have that choice. You might still scrub a toilet for $1 and you're still poor, but you're hustling for your $1 to buy whatever you can with that $1.
And if you save that $1, you can leave the country one day.
Right.
Or you can buy whatever you want. But in Cuba
there's
you
no
can
such thing.
help your family.
You
send
work
their money. Exactly.
Right.
And sometimes you do send them money. Like my aunt is still there. We will send her money and she will call and say, I have the money here, but there's no food. Where do I buy it? There's no food in the store. I have the money, but do I eat the money? What do I do with the money? So it's different. There's a difference. Even if we want her to come here, they don't let her come here. So we have the money. We're going to pay for you to come here and be free and work here, but they don't let her come. So there's a difference.
Big difference. All right, well, that's kind of a grim place to end.
It was very intense.
Yeah.
This was very intense, very serious. Okay.
Well, this is definitely a different type of topic than anything else I've done on the show, but this is just something that I've been finding very, I don't want to say captivating, but like when I hear about this, it's hard to not, care and not want to hear more and
I get
learn.
very passionate and very emotional.
Maybe that's what
this.
it is.
You should have that Yankee.
Oh my God!
On this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to have subtitles on here.
I know. He will be amazing in Spanish. He is so smart. He's brilliant. Smart. And but you need subtitles.
My Spanish is not good enough for that.
His English is pretty decent nowadays.
I think her mom's English is actually better than his.
Really?
Yeah.
She's doing good.
She's doing very good. But you know what it is? Her pronunciation is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he still does like colgate stuff where like he says it the way it's spelled, but he says it as if it was a Spanish word.
Right, yeah.
So it ends up not sounding like the word.
Right. But Mamiringa, she pronounces better because she learns them, but she'll mix the words like they make no sense.
My God,
they were all pronounced correctly. And Daddy Yankee is the opposite. He's like, oh yes, Steve, back in Cuba,
exactly.
I was an engineer. And I worked and I make no money.
That's still too good right there. It's too good.
Don't be mad. He's going to listen to this.
He's not going to listen.
Yes, he's going to listen to this.
You know I love you, Albert.
I didn't speak Daddy Yankee.
Smart man.
I might have to cut this whole section out.
Ask him first. Are you listening?
Let's put a pin in it. All right, guys, thank you very much for doing this. I know this is, definitely something that's very personal for both of you, and I really appreciate you talking about it with me.
I was about to cry. No, really. When you were talking about when you got the envelope and all that, it is emotional to me.
Definitely, I cried when he told me the story. I've cried with you when you told me, and
it's an experience, life-changing.
We definitely see.
To say the least. To say the least.
Mm-hmm. And before I came here, I met Cubans. I promise you, in Boston, I didn't know a Cuban.
Really?
One Cuban person.
I only knew like one or two.
I didn't know anything about
You've been missing
Cuba.
out, girl.
Look at this. Just surrounded. Yeah, I didn't know anything about Cuba. I was so ignorant. I was one of those people that you show me pictures of Cuba and, oh, how pretty. Oh, look, it looks like a Viejo San Juan. It's all good in there.
There's so many people the same way,
it's
though,
just
today.
That was my mentality until I met you guys and I learned about the struggle and sometimes it's unbelievable. It's like, no, that
it's
can't
hard to
be
take
true.
it all in.
It's very hard. I was like, it doesn't. How can they tell you can only get a pound of rice? How can someone tell you?
That's all you're allowed to have.
And that's all you're allowed to have. That's
yeah. We can talk
something
another hour about
I know,
that.
or just a
famous
little,
libreta.
or just
The libre-
a piece of bread.
When these things were told to me, I was just like, no, there's no way.
Impossible.
It's
right.
impossible. It's something that you can.
Yeah, you can't
never
comprehend.
Unless you were
think
brought
or
up in that
understand
environment, yeah, you
that.
can't wrap your head around
You
it.
can't.
Growing up without toilet paper. Just as simple as that, right?
Newspaper.
No shit.
My stepdad came in a
Raft?
in a raft.
Yeah, he was in
to
good
hear
mood.
his story. And
That's very.
and my
that's
dad.
another
Yeah, those
thing.
are crazy stories.
It's my
I've met quite a
stepdad,
few
obviously,
people.
but he doesn't. He's not one person to cry. I've never really seen him, and him going into detail about it, he cried and he struggled. He said, "I would do it again." After
That's
he
when
would
you
tell
know
and
it was
he
bad.
would do it all over again when he was almost dying. When he saw people die in a boat with him, like
That's when you know.
he was 3 years in Guantanamo. I mean, it's mind blowing. It's just like it's true. It's really bad there for you to want to risk your life that way.
People don't do that just because they want to have a better job.
And over
Exactly.
and over
That
again.
that makes sense.
That's a great summary to what we're talking about, comparing it poverty versus the communism. Yeah.
Yeah. There's poor people all over the world, but you don't see them, almost dying trying to get here just to escape a little bit of poverty. I mean, not to minimize that. That came off wrong, but you know what I mean. It's a very unique situation.
For example, I went to Brazil to do a nursing community, and I went to the poorest places that I came back very humble and saying, wow. But they were able to get food. They were able to build their own home and not get it taken away. It's just, it's a different level. It's sad. It sucks, but it's not the same from what I hear from you guys,
Yep. And that's why I love Puerto Rico, because you get all the stuff we were talking about.
Right, and you're free.
In a free land.
Exactly.
'Cause
I love Puerto Rico. Oh my
Are
God.
we moving there?
I wanted to move there. Oh my God. The
there
first time I went there,
time I took them.
you remember I told you when I came back? I told her the same thing. Like, I wish I could
We'll
just
find
stay
out
there.
in a week, honey, if we're moving to Puerto Rico.
Really? That's an option? Oh my God, I'm going, baby, we're moving to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
How ironic is that?
Hey, there's a lot of stuff to
Puerto Rican
rebuild
here
there.
does not want to go.
Really?
That's work, at least.
That's funny.
All right.
All right.
Sergio,
Thanks,
Charlene,
Steve.
Betty, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Of
I
course,
feel
it's my
special.
pleasure. You've been on this podcast more than any other guest.
I know, I'm so
I
special.
totally crashed.
Ooh.
That's
Benefits
no,
of being
I'll-
a wife.
you took your sweet ass time, is what you did.
I
You
know.
should have
We
been
were
here from the beginning.
Yes,
Sorry,
exactly.
guys,
That was
I
a
had a
plan. That was a
migraine.
plan.
And she refused to put on headphones. How dare she?
But what does this do?
There's
It's so you can hear as you're talking, and you can kind of self-regulate your position on the mic.
I just
Because
I
when you
just
go
have
back,
them on
Honey, go
because
like
he
this.
made me. I don't see a difference.
So when
Anyway.
I speak, I hear myself. Oh, I see.
Oh, that was so cute.
yeah, a little late for that, but thanks anyway. All right. Thank you for listening. As always, you know how to reach us. We'll be on Instagram and Twitter at APodAmongstMen. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can reach out to us. Send us an email at APodAmongstMen@gmail.com. Any questions? I want to shout out to any listeners, anybody who's been riding with us. My friend, the main man Adonis. He's been rocking with me for a little bit now. Been showing love and support. I'm gonna give him a shout out. Hope you're listening. Keep listening.
Me?
Yeah. My wife as always, but hey, you're here.
Piña out.
Yeah. Eat on bear out. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Peace.